bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! And good morning, Birds fans. It's an undefeated Tuesday here on Birds 365. I hope I get to see this for another good couple weeks, if not a good couple of months. Undefeated Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here to hang with you. Let me thank Terrell Lee, who noted on the comments already, somebody needs to wake Jody up. That is not the case. Yes, we're getting a minute late start here, and I apologize for that, but it has nothing to do with waking up on time. I was going through a deep dive, and I looked up at the clock. I said, oh, man, it's a minute before the show. You idiot. Turn down the lights. So I apologize for being a minute late, but it wasn't because I overslept. So I want to start here today, John. We'll do our usual thing and talk everything Philadelphia Eagles and self-scouting and a double-digit favorite over the Commanders, and still got to wait another 6 days now before the Eagles actually play a game because they don't play till Monday night. Oh, we'll get all that in. John Stolnis, Bleeding Green Nation's going to jump in less than 20 minutes now, and Eddie Kratz a little bit later in the show. But let me tell you what I was deep diving on. Remember, I gave you the tweet, and I apologize for not remembering off the top of my head who put it out yesterday, that A.J. Brown, with the game that he had against the Texans last week, actually passed Jalen Reagor on the all-time Eagles receiving yardage list. It kind of says as much about A.J. Brown as it does about Jalen Reagor, who was here for 2 years and can't hold off, and A.J. Brown, who's been here for all of 8 games. So it intrigued me. So I looked up the Eagles' all-time receiver list, and I also got some bad news for myself and the other Greg Ward fans. Greg Ward's still an Eagle on that practice squad. You never know when he's going to be elevated. Probably not this upcoming week, so he won't be adding to his total. With A.J. Brown's week that he had last week, he now has 718 yards total. Yes, that moved him past a couple others, including Jalen Reagor on the all-time receiving list. He currently sits at number 85 with his 718 yards. If he catches balls for 50 yards this week, that's a fair over, right? You got to believe AJ's getting 50 this upcoming week against the Commanders. JM? They could get 50 yards. Yeah, we're not setting the bar too high for him. He will move into the 80th all-time jump from 85 to 80, surpassing at number 80 right now, Greg Ward. Greg, he's the 80th all-time on the Eagle receiver list. I might have bet against that he would have been even that high, but he is presently 80th, but I think A.J. Brown is going by him with a bullet. It's only a matter of time.
There's not, if A.J. were through, 8 games, so the NFL screwed us all up with this 17-game schedule, but basically we're halfway through the season, plus, an extra game. So he's on pace for about 1,500 yards.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that would be top 50 in Eagles history, just on one season. I that would be my
1,500
ballpark.
yards would put him at number 46.
That's not good, but it's great for 1 year for AJ Brown. But it kind of tells you this
Well, no,
franchise.
hold on. It would I guess it would leave him at 46 because Devonta Smith is currently at number 49, and he'll be moving up between now and the end of the season. So he's probably not going to go past Devonta Smith, who's got 1358. So Devonta's going to have more yards. He's going to be up somewhere.
When you talk, most of the great receivers, obviously you have Hall of Famers like Harold and Tommy McDonald and people like that, but from different eras where passing wasn't as prevalent. One of the most concerning things about the Eagles' recent troubles, you mentioned Jalen Reagor at wide receiver before they fixed it with back-to-back years with Devontae and AJ Brown, was the fact that they didn't have I think it was 600-yard receiver in this era.
Yeah,
it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible.
We're only what, 2 years removed from that, John, when
Yeah.
they didn't have a wide receiver who got 600 yards. Oh, by the way, AJ Brown's got 700, and we're not halfway through the season.
Yeah. That was the frustrating part. Now, part of it, they had good tight ends and they produced, but that was amazing. That lack of production at the wide receiver position, and it forced the Eagles to do different things that they wouldn't have done. And there's all these butterfly effects. But at the end of the day, you got AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So everybody's happy. And that's the fun thing. You can go back and look at drafts and say, Jalen Reagor's such a terrible pick. Well, if you don't make a mistake on Jalen Reagor, you don't go about fixing it. And, then who knows where AJ Brown is now, but he's not in Philadelphia. So sometimes things work out. Sometimes it's better on the back end than the front end. I talked about luck yesterday. Nick Sirianni doesn't believe in luck. Hey, luck is real, man. Luck is real at times. And sometimes missing on something forces you to do something else. And sometimes that something else is better than what you wanted to do. You don't even have to go back that far. You think about the beginning of this process that got AJ Brown. AJ Brown's only here because Calvin Ridley went on his phone one day and decided to place a few bets on his favorite app. Otherwise, AJ Brown's not here. There's and they looked into other receivers as well. We know Christian Kirk. If he doesn't get overpaid by Jacksonville, who knows? Christian Kirk is here and no AJ Brown. On and on and on and on. Worked out.
Yeah.
That's luck.
How he seems to be a blessed man. If you'd indulge me for just a second, just because I think it's fun, we'll take a quick walk down memory lane. I think Eagle fans will enjoy this. And some of them probably know it off the top of their head, could run down the top 20 receivers of all time for the Eagles. I couldn't, but I recognize almost all of these names. Harold Carmichael, number one. Pete Retzlaff, again, before both John and my time. God bless if you can say, I saw Pete Retzlaff play from the 50s into the 60s, but he's an Eagle all-timer. Deshaun Jackson, who, oh, by the way, did you see him out there on the field last night? Back and active again for the Ravens, came up hurt. Shockingly, Deshaun Jackson got hurt last night's Ravens.
People were still talking about bringing him back as a punt returner. I'm glad the Eagles finally turned the page on that for good.
Thanks for the Ravens for doing that. My quick number 4, Zach Ertz, number 5. That's part of that. Tight ends got all the catches from a couple of years ago rather than their wide receivers. They were going to Zach Ertz. Pete Pios again before John and my time. Tommy McDonald, everybody knows. Bobby Watson. Now, I got to be honest. Bob Watson was a first baseman for the New York Yankees.
Bob Watson. Bob Walston, I think you're talking about, Eagles-wise.
Am I misreading it? Oh, shoot. I need my glasses on. Bobby Walston. Yeah, sorry. Do you know Bobby Walston? Can you wax poetic about Bobby Walston?
Well, no, but I like history. I know who he is, And by the way,
Bobby Walston from where? What college?
I don't know, but he was a kicker. as well. So different era again.
Wide
That's what I
receiver,
know.
wide
He was
receiver, kicker.
he was he was a more of a tight end, but he was also a kicker, which you do not see these days. So that's
Yeah,
why he sticks
he's
out to
the
me.
8th all-time receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he
Yeah,
also kicked.
he
All
did
right,
them
good
both.
on you.
Yeah.
You knew that. Brent Selleck, number 9, Jeremy Maclin, 10, Ben Hawkins, before my time, but certainly recognized the name. And here's one I did not know. And yours truly moved to Philadelphia in 1990. The two best Eagle wide receivers catching the ball from Randall Cunningham were Fred Barnett and Calvin Williams, and currently they're number 12 and number 13 on the Eagles' all-time receiving list. Back-to-back guys who played on the same team, same era, same squad. Big difference between the numbers of yards. Freddie Barnett's got 4,600 and Calvin Williams got 3,800. So there's 800 yards between them, but they're back-to-back, number 12 and 13. Brian Westbrook out of the backfield, number 14. Jason Avant. I didn't know Jason was that high. He's 15th all time. Keith Byers, one of the best out of the backfield guys, and a power guy as well. Harold Jackson, 17. Charlie Smith, 18. Timmy Brown, number 19. And the Right Reverend Irving Fryer, number 20. The Eagles have had some good wide receivers, but there's no.
If you have this up, where's Dallas Goedert at this point?
All right, we got to find Goddard. Number 24, 2,816 yards. He's in a tie.
Yeah.
Guess who he's in a tie with? Eagle receiver over the last 15 years, somewhere between 10 and 15 years. And I'll give you a hint. Oh, we can do this. I used to do it on radio, so I can do it here on YouTube. It'll be a better clue.
Oh, Todd Pigston.
Todd Pigston and Dallas Goedert have the exact same numbers of yards.
One's better.
2,800.
Well, two things. Listening to that top 20 list, you see that bottom 10 is not great. This team has not had a lot of great receivers over the years, and that's changed, and that's a good thing. Other than Harold Jackson was a really good player, different era, obviously, played in different spots though. A lot of tight ends too. You mentioned a lot of tight ends. That tells you. That tells you. This team hasn't been great at receiver. Now they're great at receiver. And I said it, and old timers get upset at me. And sorry, Merrill. But this is the most talented wide receiver duo in Eagles history. Yeah. And it's not particularly close. And people go back to Mike Quick and Harold Carmack. And sorry, Mike as well. But, well, first of all, I mean, Mike came in, it was the end of Harold's career. So, these two guys are in their prime, in their early 20s
at the same time. Yep.
By far the most talented duo. Now, not the best, because you got to produce for a longer period of time to be considered the best. But as far as talent, by far the best duo.
Yeah, that duo I just gave you, Calvin Williams and Freddie Barnett, they put up more yards. If you're just looking at gross numbers as teammates playing together, they put up more yards than the Eagles' two wide receivers. But the Eagles' two wide receivers have been playing together for all of 8 games. Yeah. So yeah, if I'm betting on the over on that one, I'm going to take the current two over any other combination when all is said and done. I was missing. It just seems like. It's so funny. You remember what you remember, and you remember the way you remember it. Terrell Owens is only number 41. It just seems like he was here longer and did more and put up bigger numbers. Actually, under 2,000 yards receiving.
Yeah. Well, it was basically the 1 year, and then a little bit of and then everything went off the rails. So.
Yeah. It just, because that 1 year was as big as it was, it seems bigger than it actually was. He's not even in the Eagles' top 40. And that's another guy that, yes, at some point, A.J. Brown will be going by. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. thank you very much for allowing me to do that. And I, again, apologize for being a minute late because I'm reading this list. I'm going through it. I can't believe that. Oh, my God. And I was surprised just because A.J. Brown is moving as quickly up the list as he is that we got off on a little bit of a tangent. Oh, we got plenty of stuff to get into as the day goes on, including talking to our first guest, one of our faves, contributor for Bleeding Green Nation and podcast host of Eye of the Enemy. John McMullen is going to jump aboard next here on Birds 365.
It's a fall car fest, and Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says, yes, you can. Jeff says, yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says, yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say, no, you can't, Jeff says, yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Go passionately, go fearlessly, go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
At Salus University, our graduates are among the most highly trained in their profession because of our unique emphasis on research, interprofessional collaboration, and early clinical exposure. Learn more about our programs at salus.edu.
You got your MAGA Mag guys, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. And we got a good guest. He's good because he knows what the hell he's talking about, but I didn't even realize this. The reason we've got John on today is because we were like, dude, have John on. And John's good. We like to try and punch him up once a month. I forgot that they're playing DC this week. This would be the Commanders and the Eagles. And of course, he's a Philadelphia guy. He's been with Bleeding Green Nation for years, but doing some DC work as well. So he can give us both sides of the aisle. Pardon the pun on election day.
Yeah, election day. Well
Yes,
done,
sir.
Jody.
Very good. For both the Commanders and the Eagles from Bleeding Green Nation. John Stone is jumping aboard with us. Yeah, you're a DC guy now these days. Still have your finger on the pulse here in Philadelphia, but
Yep.
Is it just nuts down there? I never even consider. I got to vote for head across the street and go to my middle school after we're done here today and cast my ballot. But is it even more nuts down there in DC on a day like this?
You know what? It's actually less nuts in DC because everybody's out of town. Everybody is in their districts. Everybody is in their home states, and they're doing their campaigning and their last minute blitzes. And usually the last couple days before an election, you've got the president and his people are out across the country trying to get people to the polls and all that stuff. So it's actually quieter in DC in the couple of days before an election day. Now, a month later, yeah, it gets nutty when everybody starts showing up for work, but it's okay right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of like the shore, you get that little respite for the locals. And
that's right.
And then all the out of towners come back and you get depressed, I imagine.
That's right. That's right.
John,
let's start it with, before we get into the Eagles Commanders, because Jody and I talked about Frank Reich yesterday, and I said, nah, he's not going to get fired. And of course, a couple hours after the show ends, he gets fired.
Yeah.
Another solid prediction by yours truly. But nonetheless, Eagles fans, and Frank is very popular, obviously here for good reason. And I started getting the questions right away, John. Are they going to bring Frank Reich back? And I'm sitting there, this is an 8-0 team. Everything's going well. Don't worry about Frank Reich, who, by the way, is under contract through 2026. He's getting paychecks for a while.
Very nice.
Jim Irsay. Why is everybody so in tune with adding when you're sitting there, you're doing well? It's about, in my opinion, John, it should be about sustaining, not anything else.
Right. No, I think there's still that residue from the Super Bowl and those questions when Doug Peterson struggled in, I guess, what was it, 2020? Did they keep the wrong guy? There was all that conversation going on, and that's still, I think, lingering for some Eagles fans. But you've got Shane Steichen, who is doing a phenomenal job as the offensive coordinator. Nick Sirianni, all these guys, they're in their second year together, and you're just seeing how it's all kind of coming together here in this 8-0 start. There's no need to be wistful or to be looking to add somebody from the Doug Peterson regime at this point. Now, Shane Steichen, the way he's going, might get a head coaching job next year. And so at that point, if Nick Sirianni feels comfortable with the role reversal and Frank Reich feels comfortable with the role reversal of Sirianni's the head coach, Frank Reich the offensive coordinator, maybe that could be something you can consider. But I have a hard time believing either guy would be happy with that particular scenario.
Yeah, it would be difficult. A little bit awkward.
Awkward. Awkward's the perfect word. And by the way, I guarantee you we see Frank Reich come camp next year. He's going to be one of those visiting coaches who comes in and spends
like Vic Fangio this year, which, by the way, and that's another thing. I want to clear that up real quick. Vic Fangio is not a consultant for this team. So I got all kinds of fans saying, like, bring in Frank Reich like they have Vic Fangio. Vic is not a consultant with this team. Yeah. He showed up in the summer and he did a tour of the league because half of the league runs his defense. But he is not a consultant with this team. Now, they can text him and say, hey, like anybody. Friends, I text Jody texts John, vice versa.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think? They can do that, but he's not getting paid by the Eagles. He's not a consultant. And Frank Reich's not going to be paid by the Eagles. No. But guess what?
But he'll be a camp, I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah.
If he's not employed, he's going to be still cashing those Thursday checks. But he'll be hanging out with Nick at the Novacare
if he's not employed. And by the way, when the Eagles play the Colts in a couple weeks, he's probably going to answer those texts pretty quickly now from Nick Sirianni. So from that aspect, maybe it helps a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, these guys obviously have a relationship. I mean, they worked really well together in Indianapolis. And now that Frank doesn't have any close ties to the Colts anymore, I'm sure he'd be willing to help out his former protege. So, I think that what we see with NFL teams is even if there's no specific relationship, these guys are all looking to their friends and other executives for ideas. People who've done things well in this league, you're always looking to cherry pick and see if you can get some nuggets here and there to sprinkle in and add to whatever it is you do.
All right, the Colts had won a couple of the Commanders had won a couple games in a row for letting the Sunday game slip through their fingers. Taylor Heineke with a really bad pick. He didn't play awful, but he didn't play great, and he did throw a real bad pick in that one. Is DC happy with what they're getting from their new old quarterback?
Well, I don't know that I think they're happier than they were with Carson. I think the frustration with Carson Wentz grew to such an immense level that a change needed to be made, even if Carson hadn't gotten hurt. The offense looked so dismal and flat. And it seemed like we saw with Carson in 2020, it seemed like you had to move mountains to move the ball down the field when Wentz was at quarterback. And you just see the skills that Wentz once had are gone. There's just none of that electricity there anymore. The big arm is still there, but he can't get away from pressure. And so with Heineke, I think Commanders fans were excited about having what they perceive to be playmaking quarterback, a guy who can be a little bit more mobile, who can make plays on the run. And in that vein, he has done that. I mean, he has brightened up the offense a little bit. They have looked a little more dangerous, but Taylor Heineke is Taylor Heineke, and you saw both sides of that in the game on Sunday. And I watched a lot of that game against the Vikings. It was the tale of two Taylors. In the first half, they were not very productive. He didn't play all that well in the first half, and in the second half, in that third quarter specifically, he kind of got lucky on the deep ball.
That kind of, John.
Yeah.
That was pure luck.
Yeah, and so he threw it into triple coverage, and the referee happened to take one of the guys out, and I don't know what the other Vikings defenders were doing on that play. So you get 7 there, and then he takes him on a nice drive for that second touchdown, but then he throws the pick, and the Commanders just aren't able to overcome mistakes at this point. They haven't built up enough of a winning culture, and they don't have a quarterback who can dig them out from under mistakes. And so Taylor Heineke is a backup quarterback in this league. That's what they have. I think they know that they have that. He can win you a few games here and there, and he probably will start the rest of the season, but you know what you're going to get with Taylor Heineke. And that's a 500 slightly less than 500 quarterback.
Let me jump in there because Ed Kratz is coming up later, our resident Sam Howell fan. You say Heineke's probably going to play the rest of the year. At some point, they'll probably become eliminated. They may not from a playoff spot, certainly from the division. Is Howell not going to get a chance at all this year? If Heineke plays Heineke like football, which is kind of like he did this past Sunday, makes a couple of plays, gets exciting, makes a mistake, overall not going to be a franchise guy for years to come. What is the Sam Howell feel in Washington these days?
There's not a lot of conversation about him because they had won a few games in a row and they'd gotten themselves back into the NFC playoff picture because the conference is so weak and the powerhouses that we thought were going to be great have really faltered here this season. So the door is still open for the Commanders to sneak in and get that last wild card spot. If Taylor Heineke can play, a 500 record, a slightly over 500 record, it might be enough to get the Commanders in the playoffs. And we saw the defense from the Commanders was legit on Sunday. They were all over Kirk Cousins in that game. So you can win games against inferior opponents with that defense and Taylor Heineke doing just enough. I don't think Howell gets any playing time until this team gets eliminated from postseason contention and they start to look towards next year. But for right now, they're 4-5 at this point? They're still well in the conversation, and there's no conversation about Howell coming in and taking over.
Yeah, John, I like you, I saw that game because the Eagles were off, and that was the local game here. And I was disappointed in Taylor Heineke. I thought he'd give him a little bit more juice. We mentioned the play. He threw for 149 yards. You take away that 50-yard touchdown, he's under 100 yards against a team that can't defend the pass very well. And he made the big turnover late. The Commanders should have won that game when they got that break with the back judge just wiping out a guy who's going to intercept this long touchdown.
Right.
But that defensive front, and I've been telling Jody, and I go back to the first game, Nick Sirianni, and he wasn't blowing smoke up our you-know-what. He kept talking about that defensive front. And Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, who I think Montez Sweat may be one of the 2 or 3 most underrated players in football. He is so good, and nobody seems to know it, except the people in the league. Now you have Chase Young coming back. And Jody points out he's been a disappointment from what he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be, Bosa-like, for lack of a better term, coming out of Ohio State. And he hasn't been that. but he's still a really good player. And all of a sudden, they started this practice window last week. It's pretty clear to me they were targeting this game to get him back. So you're going to have Chase Young. You're going to have Montez Sweat. You're going to have Jonathan Allen. You're going to have Deron Payne. And for people that don't know, because for years the Vikings have had a bad offensive line, they no longer have a bad offensive line. They've one of the better offensive lines in the league because they've spent so much draft capital over the past couple seasons. And that Washington front without Chase Young just ate their lunch, ate them alive. That's a concern for me, that defensive front.
It's a concern to me, too. I think in the Eagles' offensive line, it's not only just a very good one, it's probably the best in the NFL. So you have that going for you. In Kirk Cousins, you don't have a mobile quarterback who you have to worry about breaking containment and making plays outside. And so, or if there's an opening in the middle, taking off downfield and getting 7, 8, 10, 12 yards or whatever it happens to be. So if you're a Washington rusher and you're going up against Kirk Cousins, you can just pin your ears back and go out and get him. You can't really do that as much against Jalen Hurts. And I think also the RPO game, we saw what they did with Micah Parsons against Dallas. They can kind of freeze some of those guys in the RPO game and the run game to kind of keep them off balance and negate a little bit of that pressure that you can get from the defensive front. So I think the Eagles have a few additional tools in their tool belt to deal with a defensive front like what you'd see from Washington. I think we've seen them utilize that against a good defense like Dallas. And I imagine that's probably one of the things they'll try to do in the game against Washington on Monday night is use those RPOs, use the threat of Jalen Hurts being able to run the football. And as good as Minnesota's offense can be, the Eagles have more weapons that they can utilize in the passing game to kind of keep Minnesota off balance. So I think that, yes, it's a concern what Washington did last week to a good offensive line in Minnesota, but I think the Eagles are equipped to handle it. Whether they will, we'll see.
All right. John's concerned about the Washington defensive front. I'm actually more concerned about the Eagles defensive front. Sans Jordan Davis, not as good against the run. The back seven, not as good as tackling as they need to be. Linebackers, safeties, corners. The Eagles are the worst tackling team in the National Football League, 32nd out of 32, at least according to Pro Football Focus. Is that a bad matchup against this Heineke-led Commanders team coming in this week? If the Eagles continue to have issues with tackling and stopping another team from running, 4 straight games that the opposition has gone for a 120 plus, will the Commanders have the capability of making them pay coming up on Monday night for their lack of run defense?
I don't think to the degree that the Texans did, because I don't think Washington knows what to do with their running backs. I don't think they know what to do with Antonio Gibson or Brian Johnson. They haven't really been able to establish any kind of a consistent run game this year. It's certainly a possibility, but I think what you see in the Eagles is their defense has traded tackling for making the splash plays, getting the interceptions, getting pressure with their front four, and getting to the quarterback. And I think, given the fact that this offense can put together long scoring drives, that they do have explosiveness as well, the defense is more willing to allow a team to run the ball 27 times, 30 times in a game. And, maybe get 150 yards on the ground if they're not getting anything through the passing game. Because more often than not, the Eagles are playing with a lead here so far this season. So you would like to see the tackling be better. I think in a lot of cases, you're seeing it being traded for trying to knock the ball out, for trying to make plays on the ball as opposed to wrapping up. Is certainly something they can clean up. The other thing I'll say is, too, playing on Thursday night, it's hard to take a whole lot of firm judgments away from a team when you're playing 4 days after the day before. You're still physically not feeling great. You don't get a chance to game plan quite as well as you would on a longer week.
Timeout Washington / Philadelphia. Isn't that the same for both teams? Yeah, the Eagles coming in on a short week. It's real hard. The Texans were coming in on a short week, too. Damian Pierce didn't seem to be bothered by not much rest as he was running over the Eagles' attempted tacklers.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think, too, if you're on the offensive, it might be a little bit easier when you're on a short week to when you're dictating things offensively to kind of have a little bit more of a leg up on the defense. Your point's well taken. I mean, both teams had to deal with that. But I think when you're looking at a team that's tired, tackling is a thing that requires energy. It requires you to be fresh. And I think that's one of the things we saw in week 1 against the Lions, having not gotten a whole lot of tackling in training camp and all that. They just weren't sharp tackling tackling the ball carries. And it's not the sole reason why we saw that on Thursday night, but I think it's a factor.
John, I want to talk big picture Eagles with you, where we are in this league after a week in which Buffalo lost again to Jody's New York Jets. Now, it's a better Jets team than normal. It's a good team, the Jets. Yeah. They're not what they typically are. But nonetheless, if you're supposed to be the best team in football, you're supposed to win that game. And they didn't.
Yeah. Right.
And Kansas City really struggled at home, managed to get it done. Patrick Mahomes had to throw it 68 times to beat a team with a backup quarterback who they don't even feel comfortable allowing to throw the football. So I think it's safe to say the Chiefs weren't very impressive. And here we are, finally, after 8 consecutive wins. The Eagles are top of the most of the betting markets. Jalen Hurts is tops in the MVP race, or at least tied in the betting markets. Yet locally with Eagles fans, and I'll start it there with you. I get a lot of Eagles fans who don't believe in this team. Who have they played? Now, I expect it from outside fans, the Cowboy fans. And, you kind of just say, all right, Cowboys fans are Cowboys fans. They're going to, try to morph things for their team and shape their narrative around what they want. Yeah. But Eagles fans, and you're a Phillies guy, John. You just came off the World Series. Disappointing, but great run for the Phillies. Yeah. But they were the underdogs.
Yeah.
The Eagles aren't the underdogs, but I think Philadelphia has this whole underdog mentality to the point Jason Kelce started a clothing line, underdogs. They're not the underdogs. They're the big dog. Embrace it. They're the best team in football. That's what I've been saying this week. Why do so many fans not realize that?
That's a good question. And I think as I think about this Eagles team, I don't think this is the most talented Eagles team we've ever seen. I think that, and I think but they're 8-0. And I think it's because they are playing in a conference that is as weak, I think, as we've seen the NFC in a number of different years. And I think for most Eagles fans, they look at this team as a good team, but I think they say to themselves, in any other year, they probably wouldn't be where they are. If this team was playing as well as they were last year, maybe they wouldn't be where they are. I don't necessarily agree with that. I also think it comes down to the quarterback. Think about the other two times that Eagles teams were considered tops in the NFL. You had the 2004 team with Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens. Donovan McNabb drafted number 2 overall in the draft. He was expected to be a superstar, and he became a superstar. Carson Wentz in 2017, his second year in the league, drafted number 2 overall. He was expected to be a superstar. He was a superstar. Jalen Hurts drafted in the second round. Nobody liked the pick. I didn't like the pick at the time, hated the pick. He comes in, is kind of middling. Last year, he's a runner, but doesn't do much as a passer. Nobody coming into this season was sure of Jalen Hurts, what he could be, what he would do. I think most people believed he was not this team's future at quarterback. The Eagles this offseason made overtures towards every available quarterback, it seemed, about potentially coming to Philadelphia, because I don't think they believed that Jalen Hurts was the future of the franchise. And then he comes in here, and I think he has surprised everyone so much with his maturation as a quarterback that I think it's taking people a little bit of time to trust that, to trust what they're seeing, to trust the improvements that Jalen Hurts has made. And I think the fact that it's taking a little bit of a long time for everybody to get on board with Jalen Hurts as the franchise guy, having been a second-round pick, somebody we weren't really sure about, being that dude, I think that's why you're seeing a little bit of a delayed reaction to Eagles fans really grabbing a hold and saying, yes, this is the best team in the NFL. If you put them on a neutral field with the Chiefs, if you put them on a neutral field with the Bills, they can beat those teams. They can dominate whoever it is they're playing on the rest of their schedule. So to me, that's kind of where it comes down to. Any lingering doubt I have about this 2022 Eagles team, it kind of comes down to the quarterback and me actually saying to myself, am I believing what I'm seeing so far? Because it's kind of hard to believe what we've seen from Hurts here this year.
All right, I'm going to go against my own credo here, so shame on me, but the conversation is kind of taking us there. I do Sunday show on CBS Sports Radio with Zach Gelb. He does Eye on Football for 8 hours. 8-hour show. Wow. They don't pay him enough. I just come in, give him a helping hand for the last 2 hours. And he asked me the other day when the Eagles won, when they got the 7-0 before the Texans game, this was the previous Sunday, Eagles and undefeated. They're the only undefeated team left, and with every passing week, they become more of an undefeated team because they've logged that many W's, and they've only got so many games left to play. When does this actually become a pressure point? That I say it every day. Welcome to a Wednesday undefeated edition of Eagle Birds 365. So I'm guilty as much as anybody else, but at some point it's going to become a real conversation, just kind of in passing. You know, the Eagles, the only undefeated team. When it becomes more real, does it start to build pressure on the Eagles? Because not only are they going, hopefully they open up a little distance. Minnesota takes a loss. Dallas take a loss. They'll be the not only the number one team via the standing, but by playoff positioning and everything else. But undefeated does bring a little extra pressure with it, does it not?
Yeah, I think it does, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, especially if they kind of wrap things up early, it would be nice to have something to play for down the stretch. I think if they can take care of Tennessee, which I think is going to be a really hard game for the Eagles.
So do I. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. Given their run defense issues and Derrick Henry, that could be a problem. And Tennessee plays good defense. That's a tough, hard-nosed team. You got to play Dallas in Dallas, and you got to play the Giants in the one game that's probably going to matter this year. I think that's in New York, right? They play in New York in Week 14, I think it was.
Yeah.
So you get past those three hurdles. Now all of a sudden, undefeated is a real possibility. I think that's when it starts to become real. I think you get 3/4 of the way through the season. You've got those 4 games left, or in this stupid 17-game schedule we have, you have 5 games left or whatever it is. And you pretty much know you're going to be the number 1 seed at that point, or you know you've got the division locked up more than likely. Now, all of a sudden, it becomes about being undefeated. And really, the coaching staff has a difficult decision. If they've locked things up by week 15, do they go for an undefeated season? How much do you play the starters? How much do you want to set and to make history in that way? I don't know that the coaching staff will allow the team to pursue a perfect season for this to even be a question towards the end of the season.
Let me interrupt, because the way you stated, it's not going to be the coaching staff. It's going to be the organization.
Yeah.
Because we don't believe the coaching staff dictates everything when it comes to the way the players are handled and used and given off time and rest and protection and everything else. That's an organizational thing. So it's not going to be Shane Steichen or Gannon or Nick Sirianni dictating things. It's going to be a whole organizational decision.
Yeah. No, that's true too. And I think if Howie Roseman is pushing for it, then it'll become a pressure point. I think what the Eagles really have going in their favor is Jalen Hurts does not seem to be fazed by any of that stuff. And this team seems to go wherever he takes them. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think it's going to get to that point. I think they probably drop a game between now and week 15, but
wouldn't be the worst thing. Jody brought that up yesterday, John. He, and I agree with him. People say, get the loss out of the way. It's a good thing. I don't necessarily agree with that aspect of it. But it does eliminate that pressure point. And you're not talking about, should the Eagles rest players down the stretch versus play to win the game? Because I guarantee you, Nick Sirianni is the most competitive guy in the world. He's going to want to go 17-0.
Oh yeah.
And you don't have that sort of butting of heads. And maybe it is that Tennessee game, which doesn't, styles make fights, as they say. And you point out that's a hard-nosed team. And you might lose. Think about Kansas City, Tennessee, 2017 in overtime, whatever it was. You might lose a 2017 game, really close, just grind it out. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Now, people would be jumping off bridges and saying, oh, my God, what's wrong? You lost a football game. But it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I kind of agree with that from the aspect of it's logical. You expect, and the Eagles have had games where they haven't performed at a high level. Arizona, Detroit, at least for letting him back in the game. So they've had these little stretches, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to lose a football game. I think we could all agree with that, correct?
Yeah. Do you, well, let me ask you, can I ask you guys a question? Do you guys think that Howie Roseman and Eagles management would push for the perfect season, or do you think they would push for the Eagles to make sure that they're ready for a Super Bowl run?
Yeah, that I think they want to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't think they give a rat's ass about going 17-0. So, judging by the way this team handles its business, if they wrapped everything up, we're going to see Gardner Minshew. I mean, and they'll try to win the game with, and certain, because you're limited with the game day roster, certain starters have to play. They're going to try to win that game, but the goal is to win the Super Bowl, not go 17.
Johnny, how'd their attempt trying to beat the Cowboys week 17 last year go?
Yeah. Well,
they can try all they want.
They're a better team.
You put the JV out there, you're going to get JV results.
They're a better team. But you brought this up before, so I'll run this by you, John. Now, I've only been covering this team on a daily basis since 2015, but I saw the Super Bowl team up close every day. This team's more talented than that team. Now, I can't go back to 2004, but the quarterback point you brought up is true. I mean, you have Donovan McNabb, a high-level talent, Carson Wentz, a high-level talent, and Jalen Hurts wasn't supposed to be that. But I got to tell you, if this is a ceiling, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's acceptable. This team is the most talented Eagles team that I've covered from 2 through 52. I was just looking at Buffalo today because everybody says how talented they are, how gifted they are. It's about the quarterback. The same thing, reverse. It's about Josh Allen. The Eagles are better than the Bills, 2 through 52. The Eagles are better than the Chiefs, 2 through 52. And that goes back to my other point of, don't be scared of it. This team's got difference makers all over the place. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, as we started the season, we looked at the team Howie Roseman put together when they got Gardner Johnson. We thought, okay, that was the last hole on the team, and they filled it. The biggest question mark was the quarterback. Everything else would look like they had painted by numbers and gotten the whole picture painted. So you're right. I mean, top to bottom, it's amazing how adding A.J. Brown completely reconfigured the offense. It just and moving Jalen Reagor out, bringing in a guy like Zach Pascal, just gives you four receivers now that you can legitimately count on, and it's amazing how it's opened everything up. It's you're right. I mean, this is a more talented team than 2017. I think it's more talented than 2004. 2004, you had another great offensive line. You had Jim Johnson, who was sending people at the quarterback. But I think this team is probably the most talented, and it was all depending on the quarterback to make it go, and it's been unbelievable.
And by the way, quarterbacks can get paid, and this is kind of a conversation that sits on the fringes every single week. But we know we don't have to talk about it because they can't even negotiate with them till after the season is over and done with.
Right.
You know what's going to be the big sticking point? I just love your take on this, John. Lamar Jackson's still not signed with the Ravens. And you listen to anybody around the league, the sticking point, the rubbing point is the guaranteed money. And everyone is still really annoyed at the Cleveland Browns for giving Deshaun Watson what they gave, because he reset the bar and everybody is going to try and negotiate to that bar. Lamar Jackson, certainly. And guess what? Jalen Hurts is right in that conversation right now. How many hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's a plural too, is the minimum number, is going to be guaranteed by the Eagles? How big a stumbling block is this going to be? I know we don't even have to worry about it for months, but at some point we will. Is that going to be the issue between the Eagles and Jalen Hurts getting a contract extension done?
It's probably one of the reasons it'll take a while. I'm sure Hurts's camp will be pushing for that. Howie Roseman is a magician at getting contracts done. So at the end of the day, I'm not worried that an extension will get signed. I think it makes sense for everybody. The Eagles, if Jalen Hurts continues this season the way he's been playing, the Eagles have to pay him. And I think Jalen Hurts is in the stronger negotiating position. So it might be a lot of conversation. I think at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts gets the contract he wants. And maybe there's a trade-off in terms of dollars for guaranteed money. But if I'm the Eagles, what I've seen from Jalen Hurts, if this is the real thing, and if he does this for the rest of the season, I don't see as they have any other choice but to go ahead and do it. And you cross your fingers and hope he stays healthy and stays as productive as he is.
Yeah, you're right, John. And I think it's, the Deshaun Watson contract will be looked at as an outlier by the league. I think Kyler Murray's the better sort of comp point, and that's where the negotiations probably start at. And that's pretty big anyway.
Still good.
But I'll end it here with you at John Stolness. Follow John on Twitter. Read him at bleedinggreen.com. Listen to Eye on the Enemy if you want some Phillies news. The Good Bites, his podcast there. Other contracts. I mean, this entire defense is basically on a one-year deal almost.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to make some tough decisions, whether it's Fletcher Cox or Javon Hargrave, whether it's Kaiser White or TJ Edwards. You got to get Marcus Epps signed. You got to get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson signed. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do everything.
Right.
So how important is this window for the Eagles? I mean, the window's open. It's not open a crack. How important is it to seize this opportunity?
Yeah, it's really important. You're not going to be able to assemble this collection of talent around Jalen Hurts again because his cap number is going to be such that you're not going to be able to do like what you're talking about, sign all of those guys. Bradbury, is another guy that you would ideally love to bring back, assuming he can play at a high level moving forward too. I think you've got to trust that some of the draft picks you made last year are going to take on more prominent roles. Nakobe Dean is probably going to be a starter next year, and you've got to hope that he's as good as advertised. Jordan Davis is going to have to play a lot more and do a little bit more than they've asked him to do so far. They're going to have another high first-round pick this year. Do you trade that away for a lower first-round pick and another second-round pick to kind of give yourselves a few more bullets because you're going to need some cheaper talent on hand next year if you're paying Jalen Hurts? You have to start building through the draft. You can't look in free agency. You can't look in trades as much. And so you have to all of a sudden shift gears a little bit and make sure that, your picks that you used this year, the previous season, and then what they make in 2023 are going to be able to produce for you. And but that's why it's important that while you have all those guys you just mentioned to take advantage of this, because this probably will be the most talented team that Jalen Hurts ever plays with, just simply because they're not paying Jalen Hurts all that much money right now.
All right, John, last one for you, and I'm going to follow up on what John was just asking you about, but ask you go a step further. Howie's been great at getting these contracts done in this. John's talking about the window to win a Super Bowl. I'm talking about the window in this season, after the trade deadline, before the playoffs start, getting a contract extension done. Last year, he got Mailata done. He got Goddard done. He got Maddox done, all at pro Eagle type numbers.
Yeah,
I'm going to set the bar for you. It's going to be fair market value, not Eagle discount because they love Philadelphia or Howie's a great negotiator, not an overpayment, picking out the one guy and say, all right, if we got to go above and beyond, this is the guy we got to secure. This is what we got to get done. Fair market value for what you, me, and John McMullen would consider fair market value. And I think we know enough about the National Football League to be able to come up with that number. Who's the number one guy? Who's the guy, if you knew today you could get him done for fair market value going forward, year or two of a contract, who would you prioritize of all the Eagles free agents at the end of the year?
That's a good question. I mean, you usually look to strengthen the lines first.
That's Eagles centric. That's Eagles 101. When in doubt, take care of the trenches.
Yep. And so in that case, you're probably thinking Javon Hargrave as the guy you want to sign first. He scares me because he's so streaky. He has games like he's had the last couple of games, and then you don't hear from him for a little while, and you just got Jordan Davis for a defensive tackle spot. Fletcher Cox probably isn't here next year, so you can have both those guys. The other guy I'm thinking of is James Bradbury. Having 3 great cornerbacks to shut down the passing game, you see how important that is. And to have 3 guys who can actually get turnovers is really important. I probably go with Hargrave because of how important it is to get pressure on the quarterback. Getting pressure means you can maybe have a different guy out there as your number 2 cornerback and still get some of the turnovers that you would see. But it's neck and neck between those 2 guys. I would probably go Hargrave over Bradbury.
All right, John Stonis, feel free to go vote. Now, you voting down there?
I already voted.
You already did. You already got out and got it done.
Yeah, my polling place is literally 2 blocks away, so I just walk over and I'm in there 5 minutes and out. It's great.
Damn, you are a good.
You got the I voted sticker. You got it ready to go.
It's on my sweatshirt. I don't have it on right now, but I got it. Yeah.
We trust you. That's why we have you on, because we believe you. John, great stuff. Thanks much for jumping in today. We'll get you on about a month from now. Thanks, buddy.
Sounds good, guys.
Thanks, John.
John Stonis, Bleeding Green Nation's been covering the Birds for years, but got a gig as a producer and reporter down in D.C. So he does the 2-city thing. And I told John yesterday when we were planning out guests for the rest of the show, hey, we haven't had Stonis in a month. Let me reach out and see if he wants to do it. I'd completely forgotten that they were playing the Commanders this week, and he's got some good D.C. information. So he touched on a bunch of things for us. We appreciate having him. We appreciate Ed Kratz. He's going to join us in about 20 some odd minutes. I hope you appreciate John McMullen and Jody McDonald. Birds 365 coming right back.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Fall Car Fest, and Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says yes, you can. Jeff says yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say no, you can't, Jeff says yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
My wife was in an accident that changed our lives forever. She was in rehabilitation for years. She had to learn to walk again. She couldn't take care of herself. We couldn't afford a nurse. We were running out of options. One conversation with Pondley Hockey changed everything. They understood what we were going through and immediately helped us navigate the legal process. We can't thank them enough.
Pondley Hockey. Tell us your story.
The faces you know, the team you trust. The Delaware Valley's leading news program, Action News.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
You got your Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Thank John Stonis for hopping on board. Eddie Kratz coming up less than 15 minutes now. Let me just add one more thing to the mix. Last question we asked John about who would you prioritize as the number one guy to get signed, and you pointed out all the guys on the defense. Basically, I love the way you said it. Basically, the entire defense is on a one-year contract, which is not 100% accurate, but
Josh
two,
Sweat, Avante Maddox, a couple guys are signed, but
too close for comfort. It's too accurate for the Eagles' liking. Let me put one other guy in the mix, not on the offensive side on the defensive side of the ball, on the offense. I think one of the more underrated players on the Philadelphia Eagles this year has been, and in previous years, Isaac Seumalo. Now, that was not the case because he was hurt last year. Can't underrate a guy while he's overrate a guy while he's hurt. Isaac's doing a phenomenal job again this year. And oh, by the way, if this finally is the year that Jason Kelce steps aside and says, had enough, I got faith in the just newly minted and drafted replacement and Beef Jerky. But do the Eagles really want to go on the offensive line with two replacements to what has been their stalwart starting line? Last year it worked out perfectly. Dickerson filling in, steps in for Isaac, does the job. Now he's one of those blocks of granite that you're banking on as your foundation. If Kelce walks away, how much of a priority does it become to get Isaac re-signed?
Yeah, I think it's a priority anyway. But yeah, I agree even more so if Jason does walk away. And remember, Jason has told people this is it. Behind the scenes, he could always change his mind. No question about that. But yeah, I mean, they build through the offensive line, and they have their plan, and it's Cam Jurgens, but you'd like to keep Landon Dickerson, who's going to be there, and Isaac Seumalo around him. That would be very, very helpful for Cam Jurgens. And then you got to start thinking about Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson is doing sort of these mental health talks and mentioned he wants to play 2 more years. So, you got to start thinking about life after Lane Johnson as well. We just talked about it. This team values the offensive and defensive line. No question about it. Howie Roseman says it, for those listening, says it all the time. Says it when he drafted Cam Jurgens. Remember, a lot of people were upset when the Eagles drafted Cam Jurgens and said, you need this, you need that. It's a luxury pick. Jason Kelce's going to play this year. And Howie said after the pick, well, look, we're always going to default to offensive, defensive line, because people were talking about Nakobe Dean because they ultimately got Nakobe in the 3rd round. People wanted him in the 2nd round. And he said, we're always going to default to offensive, defensive line. So, it's helpful. Isaac's injury history might be helpful in that part of it, because maybe it lowers his price a little bit. But I think a lot of Isaac Seumalo is going to be the open market and what he can get, because, he might have to offer a team discount. If somebody wants to go all in with Isaac Seumalo, it might be tough to keep him, to be honest. It's one of those tough decisions.
And one of the extra last night, sitting around watching Monday Night Football, I thought it would be an okay game. It was only okay. That's all that it was. But it should have.
I like Baltimore. Baltimore's a good team.
Yeah, Roquan Smith steps right in and looks like he's been playing in that defense forever. He's just that talented a player. I do think they miss Wink Martindale more than some people are acknowledging. He's done a hell of a job for that Giant defense, and I think Baltimore misses him a little bit. But when you add guys like Roquan Smith on the fly to a good defense,
and TJ Hawkinson, a lot of this old school mentality is getting blown up. That, and I say it all the time because I've heard it from a million coaches over the years. It's not a plug and play league. It's not well, guess what?
Yeah, some
Minnesota
people are doing
plugged
it.
in TJ Hawkinson. Baltimore plugged in Roquan Smith. The Eagles plugged in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who's leading the NFL in interceptions. Yeah, hey guys, for those old school GMs out there, you better start rethinking that.
That's a very good point. But the Saints offense just wasn't very good last night. And I give the Ravens credit, but the Ravens, believe it or not, statistically, they're one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. And I really liked their secondary. Not only did I think they had 4 good starters, I thought they had depth. Adding Kyle Hamilton to a 2-good safety team already. They've given up a ton of passing yards this year. They didn't last night because the Red Rifle's the Red Rifle, and he's Andy Dalton, and the Saints didn't do anything. John, you're going to be end up being right on this one. You thought that the Saints were going to be mediocre. I thought they could actually compete. Now, they're 1 game out of first place. 1. That's all. 1 game out of first place.
Tampa Bay's in first place.
Right. But the Eagles do have their first pick, and right now would be like number 6 in the draft. Even though they're only 1 game out of first place, it's still the 6th pick in the draft that the Eagles would get if the season were to end right now. That's going to be a pretty damn good pick, John. Somebody's going to win that division. Maybe at 8-9. I don't think it's going to be 9-8. It's going to be 8-9. So it's going to be below 500 again. The way they looked last night, I don't think it's going to be the Saints, which means the Eagles are going to have a nice high draft pick.
No, I just, with the Saints, and I talked about it when the Eagles made the trade. I think Mickey Loomis did a bad job with self-evaluation. You can't just assume. They have some good players. I mean, I talk about it all the time. Everybody has good players in the NFL, but you don't lose a potential Hall of Fame coach and replace him with Dennis Allen. You don't have a quarterback, whether it's Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton, and you're going to be a contender. I mean, that's not how this league works. I just thought he seriously misevaluated his team. It's worked out that way so far. They're still in the hunt, though, as you mentioned. When it comes down to a top 10 pick, they can't make the playoffs. So people have to hope that the Saints aren't that 8-9 team making the playoffs. But I don't think they will be. And I don't know what the deal is at quarterback there, because why they're playing Andy Dalton. Jameis has got to be out there. They got a bad coach. Bottom line, might be a good defensive coordinator, not a good head coach.
I think they have a bad organization. You're right, because Mickey Loomis misevaluated. Dennis isn't getting the job done, and I thought one of the key was keeping that staff in place, because I thought they were a good staff, but maybe it was all about Sean Payton. You maybe end up being very right about that. And oh, by the way, just another minor chip in Howie Roseman's stack. Maybe if they still had Ian Book, they could go to him as their quarterback. Where's Ian Book? Oh, is he still on the Eagles? Could you pick him out of a lineup, John McMullen?
Yeah. Well, first of all, he played at Notre Dame, so how could you not pick him out of a lineup?
I couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
I saw him play so many times at the college level. I mean, I think he was in 2 college football playoffs. He won a lot. Well, you think about the history of Notre Dame. I mean, they won a lot of games over the years, and he won more for them than anybody else. So he played for a long time.
Yeah, that's one of those faux stats.
Well, no, but I mean that means he's basically a 4-year starter. A 3-year starter, but he came in, I think, as and he won a lot of games at the college level.
But the reason for that is they've added games on the college level. It's the NFL's up to 17.
Well, yeah, but
up to 12, plus they got playoffs.
My only point is Notre Dame's on every stinking week, no matter if they're good, they're bad, they're indifferent, and they were really good for the most part when he was the quarterback. So how do you not see him? But yeah, he doesn't have. In fact, I've talked about it. To me, if you're going to have a developmental quarterback, I want somebody with skills that you can develop. I don't think he's got NFL top tier skills, but he's a good guy. He's obviously smart. Yeah, I think he's got all the intangibles the Eagles like. But I just think there's a limitation. We just saw it. He reminds me a little bit of Taylor Heineke. That type of quarterback, undersized, can move a little bit. He's got some moxie, but I don't think he's got that top tier NFL talent to play the position.
Yeah, I was not a huge Book fan, even though you're right. He was winning games at Notre Dame. 4th round pick, I want to say, of the Saints.
Yeah. 4th round.
So day 3 pick didn't excite me or didn't wow me in any way, shape, or form. And what he showed in the preseason games, and I know they're just the preseason games, and how much can you actually put into it? Well, when that's all you've got to evaluate, you have to put something into it. He did nothing to wow me, but maybe he actually could have gotten the Saints turned around. That's how mediocre their quarterback play has been, that you say, oh, what if we still had Ian Book? No, Ian Book.
Isn't Jameis healthy? I believe he's healthy. Like, why the hell isn't he playing? As far as I know, I believe he's healthy. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But
makes no sense to me. And, oh, by the way, and we just got a couple minutes, and we got to punch up Ed because he's got to run down and see what's it, Happy Tuesday with
Happy Tuesday
yesterday.
Happy Tuesday.
Jeff Saturday, the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. We touched on Frank Reich and would the Eagles bring him back?
Now, by the way, can I jump in, Jody? I got the prediction wrong, but I did say Jim Irsay is a wild card.
A nut job.
He's a nut job. Yeah. So I will put that caveat on it.
Yes, and he is. And he hired a guy with exactly 0 head coaching experience other than on the high school level, who's been doing TV for ESPN the last 5 years. And I'll defend her saying that he can hire the hell whoever he wants to be his head coach. And I'm seeing people, it's a slap in the face to all the other coaches. Shut up.
Yeah.
He can pick whoever he wants. He's the owner of the team. And it's not like he hired his brother. He hired an all-time Indianapolis Colt great.
In a weird way, look, I think he's a nut job. I think he made a mistake by firing Frank Reich, never mind hiring Jeff Saturday. But on the other hand, I at least admire the courage of his convictions. Look, if the Houston Texans did what they wanted to do, I don't know what Josh McCown would be as a coach. Could he be worse than Lovie Smith? Could he be worse than David Culley? David didn't do a bad job, I guess. But could he be that much worse? Probably not. I mean, at least he showed the courage of his convictions. I'll give him that. I mean, he's going to look like a moron if Jeff Saturday. And somebody brought up a good point. Like, why do you want to be the Colts head coach? Like, for all these people clutching their pearls about insert name should be the head coach of I saw Brian Flores. Brian's got a job, by the way. You can't just leave in season to become the head coach of the Colts. He's got a job.
Right.
But anyway, for all these people clutching their pearls, why would you want to be the head coach of the Colts, the interim head coach of the Colts, to lose whatever 7 out of 8 games, and you have that stain on your resume? Maybe Jeff Saturday's there just to do Jim Irsay a favor. Who knows? Who knows?
Would not be surprised over the case. And one of the names I saw that I love, Peyton Manning. Oh, he's got like 7 other jobs.
Yeah.
He's not going to go take over the Colts for a couple of months just to do a solid by his former franchise. Not happening. But let me just, again, I said this yesterday. John poo-pooed it. I'm standing by it. I will die on this hill. The starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts 12 days from now against the Philadelphia Eagles will be one Nick Foles. The new coach, Jeff Saturday, came out yesterday and said, oh, no, Sam Ehlinger's still our quarterback. We're sticking with Sam Ehlinger. The previous head coach, Frank Reich, was on record saying, we're probably best off having Sam Ehlinger be the starter all year. I think Jeff Saturday gets one look at Sam Ehlinger next week and goes, yeah, no, we need an NFL quarterback in there. And I saw what Nick Foles did coming off the bench in Philadelphia. It's time for us to get him off the bench here in Indianapolis and put him in a football game. Nicky 6 against the Eagles 12 days from now.
Right.
I tweeted it on Sunday when Sam Ehlinger was throwing for 100 yards. Before Frank Reich was fired, I was tweeting, the Eagle fans, keep an eye out for this. Nick Foles versus the Eagles 2 weeks from now. And after what transpired the last 24, 48 hours with the uproar and upheaval in Indianapolis, I think it improves the chances of Nick Foles.
I think there's a potential chance you're partially right in that Sam Ehlinger gets benched down 21-0, and you ultimately see Nick Foles in the game. I don't think he's going to start.
You think it's going to happen in game? I'm going before the game. You're predicting in game.
There's a possibility. He's so bad, and it's so they pulled the plug in game. But I think part of this plan is they want to lose games, and try to get a real quarterback. And Sam Ehlinger is the best way to get there. I joked about Chris Ballard. The next move is to hire Sam Hinkie as the GM. I mean, they're tanking. Let's be honest. They are where they are.
Here's the reason why I think it could happen before the game starts. If and I assume Irsay is reading, seeing, hearing the same things I am. It's offensive. It's a slap in the face. This move is embarrassing for the National Football League. If he's taking any of it to heart, and he might be enough of a whack job that goes right over his head.
The opposite. Yeah, he don't give a rat's, what.
He might play it that way, but if there's a certain call from the commissioner that comes into his office and says, "You and I talk too much here, Mr. Irsay," it's not good for the NFL overall if you're embarrassingly bad and look god awful. And by the way, you're going to be in a national game because the Eagles are undefeated. You sure you want to just continue on the way you are? He might just react and go, "Hey, Jeff, anything you can do to get us a win, to get the stink off what we are right now, feel free to go ahead and do." And that might mean Nick Foles gets a start. I'm just saying, I'll probably be wrong, but it dawned on me when I was watching Ehlinger stink the other day and going, why aren't they putting Foles in the game? That they may do it this way. And then it'll be an interesting week for the Eagles fans, knowing that the best guy ever in the history of the National Football League, coming off the bench, the most accomplished, jump into the game quarterback in the history of the league who delivered a Super Bowl here to Philadelphia, might just be trying to beat the Eagles in that role come 12 days from now. Just saying. All right, Jody McDonald.
I wouldn't worry about it either way. I'll say that.
Yeah, they're probably going to win the game. Yeah. But what happens if Nick sticks their first?
Oh, I'd love to see it because I root for the story, but I'm very confident in the Eagles being able to beat Sam Ehlinger or Nick Foles or Matt Ryan, if you want to throw him in the mix.
Yeah, be careful. They do still have Jonathan Taylor. I know he didn't play this week. He's got an ankle issue. Should be back for this upcoming week, assuming he's fine the week after. If the Colts beat the Eagles, it'll be more because of Jonathan Taylor than either Sam Ehlinger or Nick Foles. All right, quickie timeout coming. Then our bud, Special Ed Kratz, jumping in with us here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Since 1977 at Rafferty Subaru, we have always been about our customers and the community. Early on, a safe and durable option, we've evolved to become the best overall brand according to Kelley Blue Book. Over the last 14 years, we've donated thousands of dollars through the Subaru Share the Love event and found homes for hundreds of pets. The Rafferty family is proud of our 45 years in business. This month, celebrate our anniversary with special financing on select models. Visit us and see why.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Welcome to Pond Lehocky. We've helped over 100,000 injured and disabled workers obtain benefits, as well as some of the biggest settlements in the state. If you've been injured at work, give Pond Lehocky a call.
You got your Mega Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald, hanging with you on Birds 365. We got another SI guy. I got two SI guys with me right now, and I got to give them their props. SI finally put the Philadelphia Eagles atop their power rankings this week.
Oh, thank God.
They had been one of the lingering, holding on to the Buffalo Bills as the number one team outlets over the last several weeks. Tip of the cap to CBS. They were the only ones who put the Eagles up at number one several weeks ago and left them there.
By the way, Damo, our buddy Damo on the 33rd team finally put the Eagles on top.
Did he? He's got Philly up on top. Good for Damo. Yeah, everybody catching up. Play a little catch up, guys. So I
did get, and we'll bring in Ed here. I did get one fan who pointed out one outlet that has the Eagles third. And
had the Eagles third?
No, has the Eagles third this week. Still behind Buffalo and Kansas City. So I'll bring Ed into this conversation. Who cares? I mean, go to the next opinion.
I do. I care. I care.
It's one person's opinion. If you don't like it, move on to the next opinion. Am I right, Ed Kratz, or am I nuts?
You're nuts. You're wrong.
Well, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth there, John. I don't, power rankings are good conversational tools and, fun to look at, but really this is all going to play itself out on the field, right? Once the postseason gets here. And it's kind of like the college basketball rankings. Like who cares who's ranked in college basketball, because you have the March Madness. It's all going to be settled on the court. So I don't get too caught up in the power rankings.
Well, hold on to both you guys. You realize we're doing a talk show here, right?
Well, yeah.
Where your opinions and what you think and what you say is kind of important. My partner likes to remind us every once in a while that he thought Micah Parsons was going to be a pass rusher before he ever hit the National Football League.
Got that guess one what right.
He is? John, it doesn't matter. Who cares? No. It's only an opinion. No, of course it matters. Does it matter to you? It matters to what we think about you. Of course it matters.
But first of all, there's a difference between a substance-based opinion versus, I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes and put the 32 NFL teams in order. Number one. But number two, it doesn't matter. I mean, I got Ryan Leaf wrong in the day. I'll admit that. You get some right, you get some wrong. I know Ed Kratz has been on this tour of pointing out the teams that made a mistake by passing on Jalen Hurts, which even that I think is revisionist history, because I think what people don't understand about player development is your situation matters. In other words, if Pittsburgh drafted Jalen Hurts, or what other team did you say? Colts. If they drafted Jalen Hurts, it doesn't mean they're going to develop him the way Nick Sirianni and staff has done here. So I think Nick and those guys, Brian Johnson, Shane Steichen, Kevin Petula, they deserve credit as well. In other words, you don't just parachute a player into the same situation. So I think that matters. But to your point, Jody, I don't care. I just say it tongue in cheek. I got Micah Parsons right. Yeah, I'm spiking the football. I don't care if nobody.
As well, you should.
I don't care if anybody cares. I mean, just move on to the next one. I get plenty wrong. I said yesterday on this very show, that Frank Reich wouldn't get fired. Hours later, Frank Reich got fired. I get stuff wrong all the time. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, we all do. Listen, getting back to Hurts, I mean, you could say that development thing about just about every player that comes into the draft. I mean, you have to believe that you can develop the kid. And, to me, the Steelers and the Colts were wrong. They didn't think they could develop him. It was an organizational failure on their
part. I don't even think the Eagles, though, thought they could develop Jalen Hurts, to be honest.
Yeah.
They're snipping around Deshaun Watson. They're snipping around
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. Sorry. Thank you, Jody. I mean, I don't even know how much the Eagles believe. In fact, I do know they didn't believe in Jalen Hurts. So now
some did. Yeah, I would say some people in that building
Nick,
did.
I think the coaching staff did, but I don't think the organization did. Yeah. And it's all a give and take.
Yeah. And really, it's the coaching staff's opinion that matters. I mean, they're the ones that are seeing him every day on the field. So if they believed in him, then, they convinced the organization to believe in him. But listen, to get back to the power rankings, if you want my opinion on who the number one team is, I know Jody wants me to say the JETS Jets after that big win against.
That's a big win, by the way.
Huge win. Big win. They're not going to put him on the top of the list, but it moves him up the list.
Yeah, it does.
Big win. It's a big win.
Look, Eagles, Chiefs, Bills, and anything in that order to me are your three best teams.
But the Eagles got to be number one.
Probably
in your power rankings.
Probably so. But I think if the Bills lost to the Jets proved anything to the Eagles, is that you can play a bad game and lose on any Sunday. I mean, the Jets are a good team. Let's face it, they're a very good defense. And
Joe Douglas, baby.
Yeah, I mean, they put together a good, and Robert Saleh is really developing those players that Joe Douglas brought in. Again, it all comes down to development, and Saleh's doing a good job, and his staff. But it's a reminder to the Eagles that if you go out and just throw the ball out there, you just can't expect to win. That's what's going to keep them from going undefeated. Is they're eventually going to play a bad game, just like the Bills did. Every team plays a bad game, and it doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're not playing well, you can win. Now, look, they didn't play well against the Texans. I mean, not as well as you would have hoped, especially early on. They came out a little flat, but they were able to win because their talent is just simply better. So you can play a bad game against a bad team and maybe still get a win. But, hopefully that serves as a wake-up call during this bye. And then the Bills losing to the Jets, also another reminder that we got to come out on Monday night against the Commanders, and we have to be on top of our game if we expect to beat them for a second time this year after torching them down in D.C. In week, whatever that was, 3 or 4. We have to be on top of our game if we want to win. And that's the same thing every Sunday, every week. You have to be ready to play a football game or you're going to find yourself, getting a loss.
All right. Here's my fear for this week. And if you were catching, if you jumped in just before we ended up the last segment, 2 weeks from now, I'm afraid of, or 12 days, I'm afraid of Nick Foles. This week, should I be afraid of, if Taylor Heineke goes down, Sam Howell coming off that Commander bench and stepping in and in that Nick Folesian-like role, leading the Commanders to a victory, surprise victory, upset victory over the Eagles?
Well, I mean, as much as I'd like to see Sam Howell come in and play and do well, because I did like him, it's not going to happen. I think the Commanders, what you should be afraid of is their ability to be physical in the run game with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, against this Eagles run defense, which showed that it has some work to do.
Yeah.
That, to me, if the Commanders want to win the game, I mean, we saw their game plan with Wentz, in week 3, and they sacked him 9 times. They're going to try to run the football. Brian Robinson wasn't in that game. And listen, the blueprint to keep the Eagles off balance and to play a game with them is to run the ball against them. And I fully expect that the Commanders are going to try to do that with Gibson and Robinson. So that's what you should be afraid of.
Yeah. And, the one thing that could be the equalizer, I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. I've been saying it all week. The most talented team. I've been around in Philadelphia. I mean, they're so deep. They can beat you in so many ways. But the one thing that can ruin it all is injuries. And we already seen one, Jordan Davis, and the Eagles were not the same team stopping the run in Houston. Now, it was a short week. I think they'll make some corrections. But bottom line is Marvin Wilson and Marlon Tuipulotu aren't Jordan Davis. So Nick Sirianni said that. When you lose a player like Jordan Davis, you're not going to be as good. That's the way it works. They also lost Avonte Maddox late in that game, and we'll see. We're not going to get indications until later in the week, but it looked like to me he tweaked his hamstring. That is a very difficult injury for a cornerback, a speedy guy to get back in a little over 1 week's time. They get the extra day, so that'll help, but we'll see. And then, there's unforeseen things, unforeseen hurdles. Injuries could always affect every team, but Jordan Davis specifically, Ed, he doesn't play that much, so I think people don't realize how important he is to that defense. Do you think that's overstated, or are you concerned about not having Jordan?
Well, sure, I'm concerned about it. What was he averaging? Maybe 24 snaps per game, but I really think, I really think he was headed for an uptick in snaps in the second half of the season here, coming out of the bye week. I think Jonathan Gannon was ready to ramp up his snap count in the middle and play him more, and not even in the middle, but he was ready to play him, lined up over a guard, in those four-man fronts. We were going to see more Jordan Davis in the second half, and I'm pretty confident in saying that. But now here we are. He's hurt for the next 4 to 6 weeks, whatever it is. And you wonder how he's going to return to play so quickly. I mean, okay, he's going to come back, and all our prayers are answered. The run game's going to be great again. But, Jordan Davis is a big guy, and conditioning's always been an issue with him. And you wonder, it's an ankle injury. How much conditioning is he going to be able to do with this month off? And then what about his technique? Is that going to suffer any because of this month off? So, it's not only a concern that he's not here, but when he comes back, how effective is he going to be? How long is it going to take for him to play his way back to the point where he was playing before he got hurt? And, they're not going to bring in Ndamukong Suh or, any street free agent that's out there. They're going to try to get this done with what they have on the roster. And I thought Marvin Wilson showed some encouraging signs. I talked to him after the game in Houston, and he said that he's used to lining up all over that defensive line because of his time at Florida State. They had 3 different defensive coordinators at Florida State, so he's played in all sorts of fronts on that defensive line. But he's not Jordan Davis. Let's face it, Jordan Davis was a first-round pick. Marvin Wilson was an undrafted free agent, and there's a reason for that. So, yeah, Davis's absence is going to be felt, and now it's up to Gannon in these 11 days between games to come up with some sort of a game plan to stop the run, because that's what the Commanders are going to try to do. That's what the Colts will try to do if Taylor's healthy. And then you have Aaron Jones for the Packers, and then, of course, Derrick Henry, and we'll see if Davis is back at that point. But, it's a tough road here. Everybody talks about the quarterbacks and how bad these quarterbacks are that are playing against the Eagles or not good enough, but it's the running backs that are the concern now. And Gannon has to come up with a way to kind of put a Band-Aid on that open sore that was left behind with Davis.
And, oh, by the way, speaking of running backs, is Miles Sanders and what he's doing for this Eagle offense flying under the radar right now?
Yeah, maybe nationally. I think locally he's getting plenty of credit. I mean, he's on pace for his first 1,000-yard season. I know that doesn't mean as much with the extra game, but he's never done it. He's staying healthy. So, yeah, maybe nationally he's flying under the radar, but he's huge for this offense. And he's another one of these guys whose contract is up at the end of the year. So, guys like him and Bradbury and White and, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they're all motivated to play, as well as they can to get that next deal. And Sanders has really helped this offense, no doubt. I mean, they haven't thrown him the ball much out of the backfield. That's kind of Gainwell's role. But what he does on the ground, I mean, he picked up, 93 yards against the Texans, and it was pretty quiet 93 yards because he only had 6 yards or so at halftime. So he did a lot.
They weren't running early.
Right.
I mean,
right. Yeah. And he had the touchdown. He's got 6 touchdowns. I mean, he didn't have a single one last year. So, yeah, that right there shows you that, he's meant a lot to this team.
I would rewind to what you said about it's about the running backs now, Ed, for this reason. The one thing the Eagles haven't done well defensively, really, besides special teams, the only thing they haven't done well as a team is tackle. They don't have a good tackling team. They built this team to stop the pass. They built this team to stop Patrick Mahomes, or at least compete, or Josh Allen down the road. That's sort of what the modern NFL is. So we talk about Hassan Reddick, great pass rusher, strip sacks, doesn't tackle that well. Kaiser White, great coverage linebacker, doesn't tackle that well. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson leads the NFL in interceptions. Couldn't tackle Jody McDonald or Ed Kratz in the open field. James Bradbury, not a good tackler. Darius Slay, not a good tackler. Is that just the give and take? You want all these splash plays, but to get these splash plays, you can't have a big box safety who's just going to be sound and tackling. You got to have a playmaker. It's just something you got to live with, or is it a real concern?
Yeah, I think they have been inconsistent in the tackling. It's not all been bad. I know they're ranked below, pretty low in tackling efficiency.
Dead last. Dead last.
That would be 32nd out of 32 teams.
Yeah, right. But I mean, listen, they're tackling well enough to be 8-0. But yeah, it could come back.
True.
It could come back to hurt them. And you're right. It could be a give and take. You want to load up to stop the pass. It's a passing league. But they need to work on that. They need to tackle better, no doubt, because eventually it's going to catch up to them, right? Like everything else will catch up to you if you're not doing it well. It'll eventually hurt you, like special teams will eventually hurt them. It's already hurt them, but they've been fortunate enough to overcome the mistakes that those special teams have made. So, yeah, I think there's some give and take there for sure.
Yeah, let me ask about special teams, because that has not been a strong suit of the Eagles through the first 8 games. Again, like you just pointed out, hadn't cost them. They're still 8-0, but they don't have any big plays, splash plays on special teams they can point to. According to Nick Sirianni, did a lot of self-scouting over the last several weeks. Had the bye week, had the lengthy week this week from Thursday to Monday to give them that much more time to break down film. Can you actually improve special teams in season? Other than swapping out plays and changing certain things, we all know about schemes and coaching up and doing different things. What can you really do different on special teams other than get the guys in a room and go, hey, we have to put more effort in. We got to is there any coaching up of special teams in season that can make a difference?
Well, I mean, you could always try to shuffle new personnel out there, but your roster is your roster at this point, with the exception of, 1 or 2 guys. So it is hard to improve. Maybe you need to spend maybe a few extra minutes during practice. I mean, we've seen them in training camp, John, and they put some time in on the special teams. Maybe not a lot of time, like we saw with Chip Kelly and Dave Phipp in that era. And they had great special teams under Dave Phipp. But I don't think there is a whole lot you can do in season. I mean, your personnel is what it is, and you don't want to overwork somebody. Like, you can put, whoever you think is better as a gunner out there, but if he's playing, 70% of the snaps on defense, you don't want to have him playing, 50% of the snaps on special teams. So, yeah, you have to just get these guys better. The guys you're running out there, you need to spend more time with them, I would guess, in practice, and get them to understand the concept and the scheme that you're teaching. But I'll ask you this: as far as the splash plays, has there been any punt returns for a touchdown this season? I don't think there have been any.
I don't believe there has.
In the NFL,
unless it happened the last week. I haven't checked, but
yeah, I mean, nobody's really making these big plays on special teams. And I thought Michael Clay brought up a good point a couple of weeks ago when he said these punters nowadays are very good.
They are. They're really good
at hanging the ball high and good hang time and getting distance. And then, putting it at a certain part of the field where your coverage team knows you're punting to the right side. Okay, we're going to overload that side, and we're going to, pin that guy in against the sideline. So I think, that was a good point, and as much as you want to say coaches are making excuses, I mean, we've seen this across the league where there haven't been any huge returns in the punt game, and there's a reason for it. And I think Clay brought up a good one with the punters and how effective they are with punting the football these days.
No, but my problem with Michael, and he's right, he's 100% right. You can add kickoff returns as well, because forget about the touchbacks, but now you can't have that sort of first line of blockers. It's illegal to have that old school sort of wall with 3 guys. That's illegal now. So you don't have these long kickoff returns nearly as much as you used to as well. However, Ed, everything is contextual, and the Eagles, compared to the rest of the league, are by and large worse than the rest of the league. So nobody, at least me, I'm sure other people want big plays and touchdowns, which aren't happening, but you just got to be better than the rest of the team. Not you don't have to be number one, but let's get to 15 or 14 or 13 being in the top half of the league instead of the bottom 5 of the league. And that's where the Eagles are in special teams.
Yeah, I think where their special teams to me is most glaring is on their kickoff return. You're seeing teams now kicking short to Britton Covey, trying to get it to the goal line or the one and make him return it because they're blocking on the kickoff return.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Subpar. I mean, he's not even getting to the 20-yard line most of the time, Britton Covey. So, why wouldn't teams try to kick it short and make you return it? Because they know, they're going to stop you before he gets to the 25. That's where it's been most glaring for me.
All right, that last one for me, whatever time it is on Monday night when the captains go out onto the field, 8-10, 8-12, whatever, they'll flip a coin. If it goes the Eagles' way, will Nick Sirianni take the ball or will he defer?
Hell no. I'm not even going to let Ed answer that. Hell no. I'm going to jump in. Against Washington? Hell no.
For a change, I'm completely with the coach on this one. I have more respect for the Redskin defense than the Redskin offense. So I say, put Taylor Heineke out there immediately and say, let's get a stop, turn this around. I can't nitpick Sirianni just blindly deferring this week because deferring would be the way to go if you had a choice.
I'll tell you, who's ever calling those coin flips, heads or tails for the Eagles?
They win every stinking week.
I don't think they've lost a coin toss all year that I can remember.
One. I think they did lose one because I usually make McMullen text me. I go, tell me what they did on the coin toss. If memory serves.
By the way, I don't know where to look that up. They have an astonishing record on the coin toss. It's pretty amazing.
They're no winning games. I think they're 7-1 winning coin tosses, but we'll look that up. Eddie, you got to run. Got to get over there and have a happy Tuesday with Jonathan Gannon. We had a happy Tuesday because you came on with us. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thanks, Ed Kratz here with us on Birds 365. Do you know where to go to look that up?
I don't. Somebody tell me where you can look up the coin toss. I don't pay that much attention to it, so I've never really. But they win so many. I'm like, they won again. Maybe I'm just overstating it.
No, I off the top of my head, and I try and also pay attention to this. I don't ever look it up. I either catch it on the broadcast or if the Eagles play defense first, I'm just assuming that because every other coach in the league does the same as
92%. I do know that. As of last week, it was 92%. So, all right, here we go. Most from StatMuse, most coin toss. The Eagles are 8-0. 8-0, according to
they are 8-0 winning a coin flip this year.
8-0. 8-0.
Holy crap.
That's a 50-50 proposition. You're telling me the stars aren't aligning, Jody? 8-0 winning coin tosses.
Kind of pointing that way, is it not? That everything is coming up roses for the Philadelphia football team this year?
Unbelievable. I did not realize that. 8-0.
I actually believe they were 7-1. I thought they were winning most of them, but I thought there was one week in there they might have lost. But undefeated in the final scores of the game and undefeated at the beginning as well when it comes to, that we've just absolutely killed their chances of winning the coin.
By the way, Minnesota's second at 7-1.
And what was the one they lost?
The one they lost was the Eagles.
Had to be. If the Eagles are 8-0, then Minnesota, the best they could possibly be is 7-1.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, in real life, in the games, the Eagles are 8-0 and the Vikings are 7-1.
Oh, shoot. And the Vikings are 7-1 with their record, too.
Yes.
Damn. What are the Jets?
Let's look the Jets. So it just comes down. The Jets are. No, I'm screwed this up. Oh, the Jets are 6-3. I must be looking at regular records. All right, this StatMuse is screwing me up. All right, I'm giving you misinformation. Now I got to figure this out. All NFL right. Coin tosses.
Then here's what we're gonna do. Let me just throw the break. We'll take a quick break. We only got 14 minutes left of the show, so you look it up during the. Don't even think about streaming.
I'm giving out.
Don't go anywhere else. McMullen is gonna have breaking news information when we come back. He's going to have.
I don't know if I am. This is a bad job.
He's going to try to have breaking information when we come back. Coin toss winning percentages in the NFL in 2022. Maybe, just maybe. So stay with us here on Birds 365.
Just maybe.
It's a fall car fest, and Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, says, yes, you can. Jeff says, yes, you can choose from over 1,000 vehicles in stock with no wait. Yes, you can still get low prices, leases, and big discounts. Yes, you can still get low interest financing. And Jeff always says, yes, you can have a real deal buying experience without the hassle. When the other dealers say, no, you can't, Jeff says, yes, you can. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown. Nobody treats you better. Jeep Adventure Days.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
At Salus University, our graduates are among the most highly trained in their profession because of our unique emphasis on research, interprofessional collaboration, and early clinical exposure. Learn more about our programs at salus.edu.
All right, come down the home stretch with your Mac guys here on Birds 365. Do us a favor. There's Johnny and I asking for those of you staying with us right till the end of the show. Before you go, hit the like button. All right, we could use a little help with our theorem or what is it again? That
algorithm
that tells us how we're doing.
So I'm in the midst. The only place I know where to go that's 100% accurate is the NFL game books, the actual game books, because they tell you who wins the coin toss.
Right. So how many would you have to go?
Well, right now I'm through. I'm on week 7, and the Eagles have lost one. They lost the coin toss to Minnesota. And I'm trying to go through them all as we do that, but they win an inordinate amount of coin tosses.
But I thought they lost one. If you'd asked me before we started this whole thing, what are the Eagles in the coin toss this year? I would have said 7-1.
Yeah,
because we know they won.
I'm glad you asked that question about the Jets, because that's a bad job by StatMuse. They say, the link says coin toss winners, and they're just giving me winners of games. So that's a bad job by them. So I'm glad you asked about the Jets. They did lose the coin toss against Minnesota. They won. Now here I'm up to.
We know they won against the Texans just this past week because Texans took the ball and went right down the field against them.
And that was the Steelers game. So yeah, they've lost one coin toss.
They're 7-1. They're 8-0 in games, 7-1 in coin tosses.
Yeah. 7 out of 8 coin tosses.
I'd say things are still, even though it's not 8-0, 8-0,
Yeah.
I'd still say things are going the Eagles' way so far here in 2022. All right, what are you going to get out of your buddy, your boy, JG today and his fellow coaches?
Well, I think he's going to get a lot of Jordan Davis questions, a lot of we got to figure out. He's probably not going to give us anything on Avonte Maddox, but I'm sure we'll try to get that out of him. Tackling, I just mentioned, that's the one issue with not much to complain about with this defense, except tackling. Not a great tackling defense, but I've been saying it all week is there's a give and take. I mean, do you want the splash plays of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, or do you want the big box safety who's just, very sound? You might tackle a guy, but you're not getting the big plays. So there's a little bit of a give and take.
And the other thing that I'd love to hear Jonathan wax poetic on, which I know he won't, but you might try and weasel it in if he's answered all the other questions you want answered before they get to McMullen asking one. Does the way the game is going affect the way that he's going to rotate guys on the defensive line? Because they've got the package where you try and replace.
I've asked him that question, Matty. Yeah,
right. But we're now on to week 2 of life without Jordan Davis, and hopefully it doesn't last for a long time. They brought Marvin up from the practice squad. He got X amount of snaps. They used Milt Williams in that position. They put Marlon in that position a little bit. They go without the odd number defensive line and have both Hargrave and Fletcher in at the same time. You think he'll tip his hand a little bit as to how in a perfect world he'd deploy him this week against the Commanders?
No, he will never tip his hand as far as game planning. But yeah, he changes things up. Another thing I think people don't realize is blitzing, because obviously we talk about blitzing a lot in Philadelphia. Eagles have the same amount of blitzes in pretty much every week on their call sheet. The question is, can you get to them? I always tell people, if it's 3rd and 2, you're not blitzing for the most part. It's 3rd and 12, you might get to the blitz. So people say they have no blitzes. They have no blitzes. Oh, they're there, but you got to get in the situations where you can use them. So yeah, I mean, and as far as the rotation, for the most part, they go in the game with a plan. But if the plan's not working, they'll shift it up. And certainly, if you're in a close game, you're going to want your key guys out there as much as possible in the 4th quarter.
All right, so Johnny Mac, here's again. I'm not trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to dictate to you questions to be asked with Jonathan Gannon. But if you ever got it in there, I really appreciate it greatly, because I think it's so misunderstood and misstated by certain fans. Run blitzes. I've seen a bunch of that. Hey, got a call on my show and here on the stream and my Twitter. Oh, the Eagles don't run blitz enough. How do you even know? You're watching at home and you know what a run blitz is, huh? Oh, okay. I guess I didn't know that you had been a defensive coordinator for some NFL team, some college team, some high school team, some Pop Warner team where you're putting your run blitzing defense together. It just makes me laugh when people start talking about.
Well, sometimes it's obvious if if Avonte Maddox is coming off the slot, but you might not know if it's a pass blitz or a run blitz. They might think they're throwing.
Oh no, some of these Eagle fans know exactly when it's a run blitz and when it's a pass blitz.
But I'll tell you this: if you're run blitzing a lot, you're not doing a good job stopping the run. I mean, you only do that typically. Not only, I mean, sometimes it's a surprise, but if you're doing it consistently, that's probably a good indication. you're not doing what you want to do.
Something's not going
Yeah.
right if you need to run blitz. Yes, we can agree on that. So if you get JG talking again, you just want to talk about run blitz. I could learn something today, and I think Eagle
You might
fans,
need some run blitz.
some Eagle fans, really small percentage of Eagle fans. I'm not talking to most of you Eagle fans, but there's some of you that are certainly more knowledgeable than me or John. You know exactly when to call and when the Eagles are in a run blitz.
Well, my favorite is the quarterback offensively when you get the screenshot of the wide open receiver, but the play call is on the other side of the field. Yet the quarterback is supposed to know the backside is wide open. That is the thing that drives me crazy.
That was one of my favorite Sirianni meltdown. Well, I wouldn't even call it a meltdown, but expanses last year when he described that one play against the Giants when everybody got the screenshot and the wide receiver. No, you don't understand. Here's the progression. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. The wide receiver ran a different route. How was he supposed to throw him the ball? That was one of my favorite rants that Sirianni had.
Yeah, he gets into it occasionally.
Specifically when it's about wide receivers. He loves to wax poetic about wide receivers. All right, Johnny Mac, good job. You and me again tomorrow. Make it over the bridge safe and sound today. You in?
Let's do it.
He will be back with me, Mac and Mac, on Birds 365 in 2 and 2. Mañana.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.